Hey, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, good, good. Scared me
Sorry, I'm a little bit late.
there.
My daughter, she was still up and hyper. I don't know why. So I was trying to put her to sleep. I was like, "Go to bed, woman."
All right, cool, cool. So let's get started. Tell me a little bit about yourself, about you right now. You work, kids, married, any ministries that you're involved in, or maybe a little bit about your church.
Okay. Well, first of all, my name is Jessica Samuels, but I go by LC or El Cristiana. I am married. Been married um, for 5 years, going and counting. I have two kids. I have a 2 year old little baby girl and a 4 year old son. Um, and right now, I'm just doing Bible studies online on Facebook Live. Um, and right now, I'm currently not involved in any church. I do a lot of um, Bible study teachings online, though. I do have. I also do partner with a lot of churches, of different organizations and different ministries. A lot of them is like Pioneer, uh, Remnants. I think that's what it's called. Like yeah, it's just real. It's like really foggy right now.
You haven't been able to find a home church, or
Well, that's it's not really a long story, but I was here. I did have a church close by. It was actually really where I actually started going off to church when I moved out here to California. I was there for 6 years, but the Lord had me transition to another church. And each church that I went to out here, like basically the Lord pulled me out of it. And the last church that I was a part of, the Lord removed me from it. And I was just asking the Lord, I'm like, Lord, like, okay, like, do you want me to look for another church? And he told me no. He said, I want you to look for me. And it got me, and I was just like so in distraught because I was so confused. I was just like, but like everybody always tells you, like, yeah, go to church, always be home based in church and stuff like that. So I got to that point where I was just getting so desperate to hear from God, because I was like, man, okay, like I'm not in any type of church, and the Lord's telling me to search for him. And it literally felt like I was in this dry season where I was not hearing from God, and I was then all of a sudden I heard the Lord speak to me, and he basically gave me one word, and he told me that I was going to church for the wrong reasons. And I was so confused. I was like, why am I going to church for the wrong reasons? I thought I was going to church to praise you, to worship you, to hear from the pastor. And then all of a sudden, that's what the Lord stopped me right there. He said, see, that's where you got wrong. You're there to worship me, you're there to praise me, yes, but when you're trying to hear from the word, you're trying to hear a word from a man, from the pastor. And the Lord was telling me, I want you to hear from me. And basically, like, my whole life I've been in church, not even knowing what the whole purpose of going to church was. And I thought it was just to hear a pastor preach. I thought it was to just receive a word. But the Lord said it's a lifestyle that you have to do behind closed doors. When you come to church, basically, the man of God that is preaching is supposed to give you a confirmation of what the Lord had already spoken to you behind closed doors. And I wasn't doing that. I was just going to church and just just taking it in. But when I went, and this is when I
you wasn't living it out. Is that what you're saying?
no, yeah, that was when I was in church. Like, I was like that was in like my I was like backsliding at the time when I was still like kind of like
Oh,
going to church. And yeah, no, this was like, a long time coming. So, it basically, when the Lord took me out of the churches and he told me, I want you to seek for me, that's when things just started to get real. And it got to the point I was battling with some type of like different illnesses, different sicknesses, and I got bed rest. So I actually, when the Lord took me out, I actually wasn't able to go back to church because of the sickness of what I was battling with. And I was actually bed rest. So even if I could, like, I was like so down to go to church, but then all of a sudden I was starting to notice that while I was going to church, I was having such a hard time to get out of bed and stuff like that. And I was just going from bad to worse with my health. So, while I was home, I was bed rest. That's when the Lord just really started to pour into me while I was at home. And I just really started to get into the presence of God and really just get into my word, just seek after him. And then, man, that I literally, it's not like I found God because God wasn't lost or anything like that. I was the one that was lost. Basically, I found who I was in Christ, and basically, like, Christ met me right where I was. So, and I really, ever since then, I just had like this just super encounter with the living God, that it just changed my life drastically. And now, like, I'm living out the word. Now I'm walking it out. Now I'm actually he took me from being the person that was always in the back row, and he's the one that pushed me, and he's the one that elevated me. And he told me at the beginning of this year, start doing Bible study teachings on Facebook Live. And so that's, scared and all, because I've never been given any type of opportunity like that to speak and I was just like, I know I'm, doing it behind closed doors still, and I know, like, I was like, people are watching me though. Like, I had a real fear of being in front of an audience. I was like, when people are gonna watch, and I was just like, I'm like, I felt like I was like Moses at that point. I'm like, who am I to teach, like, every time I was in church, basically they would, the pastors, like, they would tell me, oh, sit down, be quiet, don't say anything, don't teach, don't you can't do this and that. And like, the churches that I went to were like, the first one was like really religious, and basically they didn't want anybody to speak, unless it was like a family member of theirs. So, basically everybody else was
can't hear you.
to me. But what, like, the Lord showed me, like, if I was to ever go back, because I really do miss church. So trust me, I'm wholeheartedly, like, I love worshiping the Lord. I love being in front of, surrounded by my brothers and sisters and worshiping God. Like, the energy in there is just fantastic. But until the Lord releases me from this place and shows me a church that he wants me to go to, then, until then, I'm just going to continue to seek after God, and continue doing Bible studies. And like, since I've been doing this, basically the Lord has opened up so many different doors for me. And now I'm teaching all over the world. I've been given like many opportunities to go overseas, to travel and to speak in different churches and crusades, and also out in the streets and evangelizing and serving. That's my heart. My heart mainly is really to serve. Like, for me, if it was up to me, I would not be on with a microphone in my hand. I would not be speaking to anybody. Like, I'm the person, I like to be behind closed doors. But God is the one that's been elevating me and pushing me to go to the front, because he's like, you have I called you. Basically, he told me this one time, because I was thinking about going back to the church that where I came from, because I really missed it. And the Lord told me, he showed me in a vision. He's like, if you were to go back to that church, he showed me sitting in the back row, and I was chained to the chair.
Mhm.
And he showed me, I didn't call you to sit in the back. And he said, I called you to be in the front, not only in the front, but I called you to teach the leaders and to teach the unbelievers. So I'm like, whoa, like that literally just threw it off for me. So yeah, so that's just a little bit about me,
Cool, cool,
what
cool.
I'm doing.
So how long you been married?
5 years.
Is he a believer?
No, no,
Oh,
he's getting there. He's getting there, I believe wholeheartedly that God is gonna do a miracle in his life. So
tell me about your childhood.
that's a tough one. Well, it was very hard. It was very hard growing up. My parents, they always took us to church and stuff like that and tried to show us, the right way of how to live. But behind closed doors, it was always something else. My mom, she taught me, a lot about scriptures. She always sat down with me, and she had but she doesn't even know it, but she has like a really nice beautiful prophetic calling, on her life, and a teacher's calling, because she sat there with me and she just taught me the word. And she just really, my mom, she's the type of person where she just like really soaked in God's presence, like day in and day out. Like she was just so always in love with the Lord, and she just fell always at her feet. And my dad was trying to do the same thing, but he had a rough childhood. He was abused as a child growing up, and as a teenager, and all the way up to adulthood. And when he became married and had kids, basically he passed down that generational curse onto us. And he just literally just, I'm not trying to portray, oh, my dad is like a horrible person or anything like that, but like back then, now my dad is saved, but back then, growing up, it was horrible. Like basically, like, we, like me and my two brothers, we were all abused. My mom was abused by him. Um, all of it, like basically, he treated us like the last resort, the, like, basically, and just didn't want a family at all. Like he didn't know how to treat a family, he didn't know how to talk to children, didn't know how to treat his wife. Like he cheated on my mom multiple times, and did all this stuff like with prostitutes and stuff like that. And it just brought more and more, like, him to be more demon possessed, and got to the point where, he was addicted to sex, and he got to the point where it was he was running out of money, and messing with prostitutes and stuff like that. And he turned to me and started abusing me sexually. And yeah, so, and it got to the point where it started to get really physical, where, if I wouldn't give it up, he would beat me. So yeah, my heart's pounding right now just talking about this. Like, I really don't like, it's not that I don't like opening up about it. It's just like sometimes, like you have to let it out. Sometimes you have to like let people know like where you came from. So then people don't know like, oh, I'm on goody two shoes. I ain't never been through anything. Like, nah, I literally been through hell and back. So growing up, it was very difficult. I actually told God one time, when I was like about 18 years old, I was like, Lord, like, I don't see myself getting out of this situation any like I really don't. Like I was being held against my will there, and I was taken out of school from 6th grade, so I never got like that education. And they had me in homeschooling and stuff like that, but I felt like I never really like learned anything. So I was I just like all my life I felt like, man, like I ain't never going back to school and stuff like that. And even as an adult, I still had the mentality of a kid, because of my childhood. And yeah, so it was just like really really rough growing up. And I told God at one point when I was like about 18 or 19 years old, I said, Lord, like I don't feel like I'm gonna get out of this situation. I'd rather you just take me out. I told the Lord to just take me home, take me in heaven. And I remember when I was like 19 years old, I had just had my first heart attack. I was diagnosed with having heart failure, and I had my first heart attack, and after that, like about a week later, I literally felt my spirit leaving my body, and I felt like I was dying. And I sat down, and I'm on the bed, and I literally felt like I was just like I was like happy. I was actually happy to even if the Lord was to take me because of the situation that I was in. But I remember hearing the Lord tell me, ask me, what do you want? And I was like, what do you mean what I want? I was just like, and then I thought about it. I said, I want to get out of this situation. I said, I want to be on my own. I want to be married. I want to know what it's like to be in love. Like, I want to know what it's like to, have friends, to have kids. I told him specifically, I said, I want two kids. I want a girl and I want a boy. And I want, I just want to be free. I want to feel free. I want to be at peace. And a year later, the Lord, set me free. He set me free from that situation drastically. At that time, we were living over there in the Philippines, and we were living over there for 2 years doing ministry. And that's when I started to feel sick and all that. And when the Lord asked me that, I was 19 years old. And by the time I turned 20 years old, I was set free from that situation. The Lord got me in contact with some church, with the first church that I was telling you about. The church family, they took me in, and they let me into their home. Basically, I got my start in life because of them. And despite of how the church is, being like really religious and stuff like that, I will never forget like my first start. And I already knew that God was already taking me out of that situation. And as soon as I turned 18, like about like 3 months later, I was in the pastor's house living with them. And after that is history.
Is this in the Philippines?
No, I came from Florida
Okay.
to the Philippines to California.
Okay.
So I originated from Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Um, what more work do you think God needs to do in your life right now? What because we're all still in the process
Oh
of
yeah. Oh
change.
yeah.
What more what work do you think God still needs to work in your life to take you to that next level so you can get closer to Him and
Amen.
you more like Christ? Are there any issues right now that you're still struggling with?
Um, at the top of my head, like lately, the Lord has been showing me the fruits of the spirit. He's been showing me, like, he's been removing a lot of stuff from me, like anger. I was even as a Christian, I always struggled with being angry. Like disciplining my kids. Sometimes I would kind of like go overboard, and I was just like, man, like I hate this. Like I just felt like, like you're like, how do I get to that place of peace? How do I handle situations where I can like literally like talk to my kids or talk to my husband with respect and stuff like that. And I feel like right now God is like, he's even showing me to learn how to respect my husband, know how to talk to him with respect, and genuinely love him, and genuinely like love my kids the way that Christ loves them. And like he's working on me, like with my anger. He's working on me with and I've, trust me, I've calmed down a lot. Even my husband has told me that. He told me, he said, yeah, when I first met you, like you were really really angry. And I've, yeah, like for the past like few months, like I literally just felt like like your kids, like they would try to like test you and stuff like that, or your husband would even try to test you. I just noticed that there was be like the Lord is like bringing me to a place of peace, and how to basically handle the situation with in the spirit and not in the flesh. And I that one I know for a fact that God is still working on me on. um And the other thing is like having like that self-control. The Lord has been teaching me on self-control, like this whole all of last month basically. Like I was just like in the wilderness. I literally felt like I was in the wilderness, and out of nowhere I heard the Lord speak to me and tell me to do a 21-day fast. And before I was I always had issues with like eating and with food and stuff like that, and I was gaining weight, and with my health conditions that I was having, my health was declining and it was getting worse. And the Lord was telling me it's because you had no self-control. And all of a sudden he just dropped in my spirit to do a 21-day fast, and today is the 20th day of me doing that fast. And literally on the third day, like, man, the Lord just like dropped it in my spirit, like this is going to be my regimen for the rest of my life until he changes it up, because like the Lord has literally brought to my attention like how much I was feeding myself that of all the unnecessary stuff, and God was showing me like all the stuff that what I was eating and stuff like that. It was really taking its toll on me, and it was taking me away from my purpose and my calling, because it was actually declining my health, and it was declining the time that I had here on earth.
Right.
Imagine, the doctors even told me like I needed surgery in my heart, and it was getting to the point where I was having like a neurological disorder, where my whole body was starting to shut down because of the stress that was happening on my heart. And like, and it was basically causing me to turn like in my mind like a vegetable. And God showed me, he's like, that's not how I called you to be. I called you to have, like the fruits of the spirit, to have, peace, patience, love, gentleness, kindness, goodness and self-control, like. And he calls us to have the fruits of the spirit. And if we have the spirit of God, we need to grow in the spirit. So little by little, I see the Lord taking out and removing a lot of things from me, like he was like, at first he was working on my patience, um and like little by little he's just highlighting things to me of what he's still working on me on, and like I said, the most recent one was self-control.
Okay. Awesome. Let me ask something. So, do you find it? I'm just curious because like your faith and then your husband's, since he's not there yet. Do you guys ever like fight over that, or is there
Oh yeah.
tension?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. Oh my god, I hate it, I really do, because it's always like a debate. I'm not trying to make it a debate or
Uh-huh.
anything like that. Like he would ask me a simple question, and then all of a sudden he would start yelling at me because I'm not believing in what like he would get mad, like, because I'm like, I read the Bible and I believe in Christ, like that's for me, like I ain't going anywhere, I'm firm on what I believe in, I'm firm in who I believe in. And for him, he's all like, oh, like, well, there's, the Muslims are saying this, and then like,
Okay.
like you need to read other Bibles, you need to read other stuff, basically he keeps on telling me, like, even the other day he was telling me, like, there's not only one way, like there's many ways to get to heaven,
Ooh.
and
Ooh.
yeah, so it's just like bro, like lately it's just been it, like it kicked up a notch, like I'm telling you, like the heat in the spiritual warfare in my own house has been kicked up a notch, because like it was like, man, like Lord, like what are you doing, and like I said, I've been, since I've been on this fast, like that spiritual warfare has just been gone straight up. And basically there's been more fighting, more, and I don't want to, like, trust me, I don't want to fight, I want to be at peace, I'm trying to, basically like I would try to come with the good news, and I would just I would literally be calm, and all of a sudden like he would just like just
Yeah.
start going off the deep end. And I'm just like, bro, like, why are you yelling at me? All I said was that Jesus died for our sins on the cross, but it's just man, it's just whew,
Yeah.
I already know. So I'm always like in constant prayer, but I know
Yeah.
God has a plan and a purpose for his life, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, when me and him we got together, basically I was backsliding. And like I was running away from God. I was involved with another guy for 3 years, and for those 3 years basically I cheated on my ex with my husband.
Okay.
And yeah, so like I said, I was like out there, and I was after I left my ex, I ended up getting with my husband. I ended up having 2 kids. And the like about to say a few months before I find out that I was pregnant with my daughter, I dedicated my life to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I'm done. You know, I just want you. I just want a whole new start. I just like, because I grew up in church. I know what it was like to be in the presence of God. I've tasted the, you know, how the Lord is, you know. So for me to run away from his presence, I said, Lord, I'm done running, you know. So I made the decision, and I was smoking. I was always getting high with my husband. I was getting drunk with my ex, and when I got with my husband, I was getting high with him. So and it got to the point where I was like even liking the opposite or the same sex. And I was just like, bro, like man, like I'm just going in too deep, man. I'm just going further and further and further away from the Lord. I said, Lord, I at that point I was just like, Lord, I know the truth. Oh man, it was so crazy. I even told the Lord, I said, Lord, I know the truth. I know it. And so I made the decision that day, and I just ended up going to church. Um and little did I know, man, I did not know that my life was gonna be turned around upside down after that day. It was like that encounter that I had with the Lord. I literally that was the day that I had a true encounter with Jesus. Ever since then, I've never been the same. I ain't never been the same.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I'm sure your video will encourage and inspire other brothers and sisters. Again, I want to thank you for opening up. I know it's tough, but I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you. And I'll upload it and I'll send you the first copy of anything you want me to change. Just let me know.
Okay.
All righty. All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you. All right.
All right.
Have a good night.
No problem.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.